radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, everybody. How you doing? Fade to Black. Today is Thursday, May 15th, 2025. Let's do this, man. Yeah. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What an amazing week this week on Fade to Black. And yes, today is my Friday. It is indeed your Thursday. Monday night, we had Dr. Scott Taylor on with us talking about the shared death experience. And Tuesday, Patricia Corey was here talking about tech and parallel universes. Last night, Patricia Eltinge was with us talking about dreams. And tonight, it's Deep Prasad. And we are going to be talking about tech once again. Little quantum computing, some UFOs, some physics, some science, all the stuff that just makes me go, yeah, let's do this. Now, I do have 3 major events coming up. I do have Contact in the Desert later on this month, May 29th through June 2nd, right here in Palm Springs, California. Then I go to Peru with Brian Forster for the Inca Celebration of the Sun. Then I come back to the States for the Psy Games, August 1st through the 3rd, 2025 in Charlottesville, Virginia. Links for everything that I am doing are below. All right, it's very simple. Now, the tour to Peru in June is sold out, but we have a second tour that I am hosting in November. So if you go to hiddenincatours.com, the links are below. You can check that out and our schedule. Earlier today, I announced, and yes, it is happening, next year in August 2026, we are going to do a tour of Scotland. And this is going to be the Monty Python and the Holy Grail Scotland tour of the Holy Grail castles in the films, and also other locations that were shot in the film. This is going to be amazing. I am so excited about this. And we are pretty much finalized on everything. And I got the poster today, and I just got all excited, and I announced it earlier today on the show. I wasn't joking about this. This is going to be amazing. So over the next few days, as we get everything buttoned down, then I'll do a formal thing and get stuff out there on social media and stuff. This tour is going to sell out. It's going to sell out in minutes, but it's going to be great. This is something that I have always wanted to do. All right. All right. So, yeah, it wasn't a joke. It wasn't April Fool's Day. No, going to Scotland next year. Monty Python and the Holy Grail tour. All right. All right. Now tonight, Deep Prasad is back with us. And tonight, and if you follow this show and, over the years, you know where my heart lies. UFOs and conspiracies and all of that stuff and time travel, of course, but it is physics and science. And I research that. And as I go through my journey of trying to get answers to questions, everything always leads me back to physics and science. And I do a lot of research and I read a lot of books, and I'm not a physicist, but I play one on TV. I know quite a bit about the subject. And one of the things that I like to do is to bring people of science on this show that are friends of mine, and we can sit down and have a very candid conversation about this. And Deep is a little bit different here because he is he's had his own life-changing experiences. I don't know if we'll get into that tonight. We may. But that has led him into another direction and how to apply science and his work into the search of UFOs and also the material science behind that. Now, quantum computing, that's a whole nother thing. And can you apply that in chasing the science behind UFOs? Well, yes, you can. Of course, you need the right person to do it. And Deep is definitely leading that charge. He is a physicist and he is the CEO of ReactiveQ. The links for that are below, where he is indeed using quantum computing to accelerate breakthroughs in not only science and metamaterials, but also to chase down what is visiting our planet. All of that and much more going to go down tonight. And I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Deep Prasad. And he's right there. Deep, what's going on?
Jimmy, absolute pleasure, my man. It's been so long. I was just reminiscing of the last time we spoke. I believe I was actually in India, and I had to call in and figure some stuff out. So.
Yeah. Okay. We'll come back to that. I was reminiscing myself today, and I was thinking about the first time we met, and it was via a phone call a long time ago. And I was thinking, man, Deep was probably like 16 years old. And yeah. So just for every So just for how old are you today?
I'm 29 years old, Jimmy.
29 years old.
Yes, sir.
And you just remind me. I say this to my audience all the time. What the hell have you done with your life lately? Look at Deep, and but yeah, 29 years old, man, and congratulations. Again, we've known each other for about 10 years. So yeah, wow, you were probably 19. Yeah.
I don't know if it's been 10 years, but it's been close. It's definitely been around like 6-7 years easily.
Yeah. I was thinking it was 2015, 2016. It is 2025. And you're the physicist here. You're the numbers guy. You should know this stuff. Run an algorithm.
Totally.
Get on that whiteboard in back of you and let's figure this out. But it's been a crazy journey, hasn't it?
Yeah. Holy cow, to put it lightly. Yeah. Crazy indeed. And wild and surreal. And very educating.
With this community, the UFO community, and I've watched you dip your toe in it in sometimes controversial ways in your social media post, and you're always poking a stick in the eye of the bear.
Yes.
And you know this, but the community has embraced you. It's a pretty good feeling, isn't it, when they bring you in as part of the family?
It's a really warm and great feeling. Yeah, it's very important. I took over the past several years, I've really focused on developing AI for material science and AI for mining or minerals and geology. And I'm happy to get into those two. And so I kind of took a bit more of a step back directly from the UFO community. But I kept my, eyes and ears and hands and stuff, or fingers in the pie still, like for the background. Please, go for it.
That's a good place to start, actually.
Sure.
One of the points that I like to make is in the world of science, and specifically cosmology, and then you go a little bit deeper and you get into physics and theoretical physics. You have the quantum side. You can get into the cosmic side too as well. But once you get into that zone, the thinkers there sometimes are too pragmatic, and they're not as creative anymore, at least publicly in their statements, where they don't want to go into a certain zone. ET, consciousness, these other thoughts, they just don't want to go there. And you have chosen to go there. Why do you think that is? Why do you think scientists are so reticent to dip their toes into wonderful subjects?
That's a great question, Jimmy. I think fundamentally it comes down to risk, and risk tolerance. As a scientist, physicist, engineer, technologist, your entire reputation hinges on your ability to predict trends and be accurate. You cannot be delusional, or you will make no money for investors, no impact on the world, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I think I just have, for whatever reason, a higher risk tolerance in part, and I'm willing to obsessively pursue the ends of my curiosity, no matter what that price may hold.
But it did okay. All right. Those are perfect words, right? But
Thank you.
didn't Newton throw risk out the window? Didn't Einstein throw risk out the window? Didn't Niels Bohr throw
Yeah.
risk out the window? How about Schrodinger? Anybody involved with Copenhagen,
Yeah.
right? Threw risk out. Oh, a particle is both a wave and wait. You can't say you can observe something and change its state. What kind of crazy ass crap is that? Well, that's throwing risk out the window in the pursuit of knowledge, isn't it?
I love
Where did that go?
Yeah. That's amazing. I really enjoy that. That was beautifully stated, and I think part of it is that we live in a system where taking high risks is disincentivized in most cases. We do have a high risk, high reward type, aspect that capitalism enables. However, if you look at like academia or the modern research community, you are incentivized to put out papers and really just get grants and apply for grants and so on and so forth. And so you can't go too far out of consensus, or you won't get funding for your research as a scientist or engineer physicist. In the days of Newton, that guy was literally in his I think it was his Cambridge dorm room during like basically the bubonic plague, or like their or the pandemic equivalent, looking at the moon essentially for like 2 years straight and figuring out, okay, because of this elliptical orbit, I must have some sort of differential equation or ability to like take derivatives and integrals. And so he came up with calculus and so on, in part by looking at the planets, right? So celestial bodies. So and there was so I think it's incentives and risks there. Throwing risk out the window, to your point. He I'll take Einstein for example. The guy was literally going against the entire scientific paradigm back in his days, as a Jewish man, right, during the Nazi era. That's fucking crazy. That
Yeah.
you want to talk about risk? That's fucking crazy. That's risk. So yeah, I don't know.
Totally. And Avi Loeb, I think,
Yeah.
is a great example of somebody. Now, Avi is somebody that I know personally and I've hung out with.
I love Avi.
Yeah, I've got lots of admiration for him. And now, granted, he had to toe the academic line for a
Totally.
certain point.
But
But
especially early on in his career, I bet, in the early few decades.
yeah. But once he got himself established, he was like, screw it. And I'm being very serious,
That's
right?
amazing. I love
Today, we always talk about this funding environment, right? That you're referring to. He has found ways for alternate revenue streams to keep this going, no matter what the academic part of this wants to say about his research. And that's pretty commendable. He can do it because he's Avi Loeb and he's established himself. But we need more Avis. We need more D Prasads, don't we?
Thank you. And I totally agree. My next project that I'm kickstarting, one of them is called Open NHI, and essentially, obviously for the non-UFO audience, which is probably a small number, that's open non-human intelligence. And the idea is to develop this platform that allows any civilian to develop sensors that tracks and detects UAPs, and then basically gets paid and rewarded for contributing data or science research to the phenomenon. So essentially, what I'm trying to do is make, with my partner Marilyn Ma, who's my co-founder here. What we're trying to do here is basically figure out, how do you create this network that's totally decentralized, where you have hundreds and thousands of civilian researchers and scientists, and folks who just want to basically pool their resources in such a way that they can not only detect and track a UFO, but actually recover one, just like a Lockheed Martin or a private aerospace company would be able to do. What I'm trying to do is basically enable a public, essentially, crash recovery program that's like global. So I know that it could get me killed probably for 10 different reasons, but that's besides the point.
Well, that's high risk. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's high risk.
Yeah.
So let's explain a little bit further how this approach is done.
Sure.
When you so everybody would have software or an app, and I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's right. So essentially, what I'm thinking about is your own like little hardware kit. It's gonna be a little black box with some beautiful sensors and a gimbal system inside of it. And essentially, if you have one little guy like this, a little gimbal with a camera, infrared sensor, radar, passive radars, and so on and so forth, essentially, what we're trying to do is reduce the cost so that it's very affordable. Like we're talking like under $200 or something. And the idea is that as you collect data, like surveillance data, for UFO companies or researchers, like let's say Skywatcher as one example, or Avi's stuff, right, with Project Galileo, or like anybody really, like you and I might want to purchase data. We might pay like a few dollars together. I pay $10, you pay $10, 10 people come together, that's $100, right, for like somebody's data. So the idea is that by just collecting data passively with this kit that you buy, you might pay $200 up front, but ideally you amortize that payment and you recoup the price and break even on it pretty fast. We're going to try to aim for within a year, like you would break even by just participating and submitting your data to the network. So if you're an experiencer, right, and you're commonly getting like experiences with the phenomenon, we're super interested in your data. And if you're the real deal, you're like a Chris Bledsoe, you got like repeat UFOs coming and stuff like that, that will show up. Oh, it's like, and so it's easier to quantify the value of that data and reward that person correctly. The alternative is that we have a centralized approach, right, where you have groups that kind of silo the data, and you don't necessarily, the person who created that data doesn't necessarily get rewarded for it. So this is a way to, what we're going to create with these kits, with the software that comes with it, is this really easy way to get paid for your experience and for your part of the contribution to recovering the UFO craft.
So I could, out here, I live next to Skunk Works. If I set that thing up in my backyard, I'd make $1,000 a day, because that thing would be.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah,
I'd have to try to deal with Lockheed, but you're not
could you imagine the data packets from me?
Super valuable, yeah.
Can you imagine that? But that's a great idea. That's an original thought.
Thank you.
That's a great idea. So you think you're about a year out from this?
With the first kits, I think we think that we can probably put them out in the first 3 months. With the first prototypes, we're gonna have like 5-6 people. We'll bring them out to different ranges and so on and so forth, hopefully. And then in the next 6 months, make them commercially available so that somebody like yourself or anybody else can quickly just like buy a kit, try it online. So we're gonna be aggressive about it, and then we'll just keep upgrading the hardware so that
Right. How do you okay, I want to stay on this for a minute. I think this is a great idea. How do you analyze the data? How do you separate the data from knowns and unknowns?
The way that you do it is, first of all, you do it based on layers of data and dimension of the data. So if it's like radar data that you're collecting, right, you're going to be able to just like check against FAA databases, call signs, and so on and so forth, transponders, and then when it comes to things like infrared imagery, you're going to want to be able to check that against physics-based models, and that's where like having this sort of decentralized marketplace or decentralized layer that allows anybody to sort of contribute AI models will be super powerful. So you could be some group in India, some kid in India who thinks of this interesting way of a computer vision model of detecting and tracking UFOs. So as long as you have a video camera, and that video camera, maybe it's got like, or maybe got some crazy DSLR camera or some crazy Nikon or whatever with crazy zoom attached to it, or you have even better an infrared imager, an infrared camera. Right now, there's only one really good object detection and tracking algorithm or software for infrared sensors, infrared cameras, publicly available, not in the classified, sector or anything like that. And so we can do way better. So imagine you have a decentralized network where people are contributing algorithms that are even better than what exists today. That's private and closed source for detecting and tracking objects in the infrared spectrum. Now you and I can use that because it's open sourced and it's decentralized, but somebody got paid for it. So so that would be the idea there. Or I don't know if that answers your question though. But.
Well, it does. It does. Well, you have to, there's a lot of stuff going on, so you have to separate, like I said, the knowns from the unknowns. Would you then dump all of that?
Yeah.
Would you apply quantum computing to start to sort out that stuff too as well?
Eventually the next this isn't going to happen in the short term or anything like that, the integration of quantum computers for these things, I will say, like, just temper expectations, but in the future I definitely speculate, so we're talking like a decade plus type stuff here, because that's when stuff will really get fun with quantum computing for UAPs, at least detecting them. There's a insane sort of power law. I should be careful with that word, but a very, very powerful relationship between the accuracy of a quantum sensor, which is a sensor that leverages quantum mechanics, and the accuracy and number of quantum computing bits you have. So, meaning that the more qubits you have, the more powerful of a quantum computer you have, the more accurate your reading is from the same quantum sensor device, effectively. So this holds true for certain kinds of quantum sensors, which is very interesting, right? So the idea is that you can improve the signal to noise ratio and the sensitivity by introducing more compute or quantum computation for processing. Why is that relevant? Eventually, we're going to have civilian-based quantum sensors, quantum magnetometers, that currently Lockheed has, right? Like the dark eyes magnetometer. And these guys will be able to be far more detective, far more sensitive when UAPs show up. And so with quantum computers, those guys will be able to compute the sort of disturbances in the magnetic field or the gravitational field by UFO far, far faster, and be able to compute it far more accurately for certain problems. So
now you would have to, in an instance like that, you would have to detect and use that quantum sensor in real time. You would have to have the object in your sights.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, it would have to be now it depends though on the number of qubits you have. So, if you have a quantum gravimeter that's using Wigner tomography, let's say, and the implication here is that what you can do is you can detect the gravitational moment or the mass, the movement of an object underwater, and it would be proportional to the number of qubits, exponentially to the number of qubits that you have. So, meaning that I could detect a submarine, 100 feet away from me if I have 3 qubits. Let's just say as an example. If I have 4 qubits, now I can detect a submarine 1,000 feet away from me.
Right.
And then suddenly at some point you get to miles and miles, and then you get to thousands of miles away. So with just, less than
Additional qubits.
Exactly, with just about 25, 30 qubits in this example, I now can detect something hundreds of thousands of feet, away. So as an extreme scenario, so that's the idea. So in that case, they don't have to be directly in my line of sight. But, I could have a very large, like, radius or like a field of detection with these sensors. In fact,
that's crazy. What?
Yeah, they are.
Could we? I love this. I love
This
this
is godlike
conversation.
technology. Yeah.
Yeah. This is crazy. It's like you can just let your mind go, and as far as you want to take your imagination, you can actually apply the science and
I agree.
quantum computing. That's crazy. Okay, so let's do just that. Let's spitball. Can we spitball?
Sure. Yeah. Of course.
Can this be applied to the James Webb Space Telescope?
The quantum sensors or the quantum computing?
Both. Can you apply? Let's say, okay, let's let your mind go here for a second. Let's say the James Webb suspects an object so many light years away approaching our star system. Can this be applied to the James Webb to accurately track and detect and figure out what that object is?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. This would be kind of like having a better telescope or a better lens that, like, sort of, lasers in on what you're looking at. So the way to think about that is that quantum gravimeters would enable essentially both high frequency and low frequency gravity wave detection. And so once you can do, both lower and lower frequency and higher frequency gravity wave detection, you can detect things like wormholes that are, like, let's say 10 light years away. Or you can, like, point at an object that, let's say, the James Webb Telescope. One example that I'm really interested in is Proxima Centauri, right? So the James Webb Telescope has given us a lot of new information, interesting information on Proxima. And one thing that we don't know about it, though, however, is there a stable atmosphere? Because it's tidally locked, but is there, because if there's a stable atmosphere, there's warm water on that baby. And that's like the nearest star system to us is 4.2 light years away, right? Only about 200,000 times farther than Mars is. Not too shabby. And so quantum gravimeters and quantum sensors would be able to tell us far more information about that entire system. So I think there's a sort of like tango here to play. So we would be able to tell, in my opinion, are there sort of like tidal movements and moments and stuff like that potentially? Yeah.
I just got a text from Serena. I'm going to throw you under the bus. She said, reply to her email so we can get you out to the Conscious Life Expo. He invited, you know what? I'm really going to throw you under the bus. Deep and I are talking a couple of weeks ago. I said, okay, man, Conscious Life Expo. He said, I'm there. I said, you're okay. All right. So I told everybody Deep is in. So it's going to be great. The community needs this kind of positive thought that these detection systems and the ability to do this is there for humanity, right? This is nature. We have the right to know what the heck is going on out there, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely we do. Yeah, it's a God-given right, I would say.
It's a God-given right. Well, I don't believe in God. No, I do. I just made a mistake. You know who the most... You ready? I'm going to tell you one of my funniest jokes, and a lot of my shit's really funny. You know who the most spiritual person in the world is?
A baby? A child, maybe?
Not even close. A physicist when the plane is going down.
I like that. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's so true, man. I hedge my bets when it comes to that. Yeah, I absolutely hedge my bets. But okay, because when certain things are announced by the James Webb, like the detection of a water planet, being able to peer inside an exoplanet's atmosphere 120 light years away. That's insane that we have the ability to do that. Then there's the other rumors that the James Webb is tracking a fleet of objects right now on its way to Earth, and it's going to be here in a couple of years. Do you think what are the rumors that you have heard with stuff like this?
Yeah, you know, surprisingly, I have not heard any other than the ones that were publicly, acknowledged. But there's nothing even for me to, like, confirm or deny here. Like, I just haven't heard anything, So, which, yeah, doesn't
surprise you? Would it surprise you though?
I see. If this actually turned out to be true,
yes.
Honestly, it would, just because of the resolution of the James Webb. It's very, very good. It's a great telescope. Is it accurate enough to resolve alien spaceships like from light years away? No, I don't think so. Not at all. So that's just like my general takeaway. So, but I will say this though, caveat. Could a very clever scientist working with a class... By the way, I am legit spitballing. Like, I know there's gonna be conspiratorial people.
Let's go, man.
I'm actually spitballing here. But I could see maybe like some sort of like crack NASA scientist, like really, like clever guy, talk to somebody within the classified military industrial complex with a security clearance or something, and be like, oh, whoa, there's actually this sort of like, hydrogen signature to look for, or this particular gravitational lensing that occurs based on as a techno signature that you should look for. And so just hints on the basic science would be enough for the right scientist to find, and resolve these alien spacecraft despite the limitations of the JWST. But it would require a hint, and it would require all this to even be true, which I swear to God, I have no idea. Like, I'm just making it up. Like, I've no idea.
I'm going to find out if you do know the secrets here in just a second. You're going to see how good I am. What kind of techno signature appeals to you? What should we look for?
I definitely think disturbances in space-time. So you can't mask that as easily as you can mask other signatures, right? So like with electromagnetic phenomenon, you might be able to mask that with a Faraday cage, sure. But it's much, much harder. Even nuclear radiation is an interesting one, right? So nuclear radiation, you can protect and shield yourself from that multiple different ways. One is creating an active sort of toroid-based magnetic field that you're controlling with like electromagnets and so on, and actuators. And the idea there is that you're deflecting nuclear radiation or like high energy radiation, like gamma waves and gamma rays and so on. Or you have like really, really thick walls, literally made of lead and so on. So that's like, so there's different ways of protecting yourself. But gravitational, so if you're, shielding, you're trying to shield your techno signatures, because an advanced civilization will not make it easy. They're not going to be sloppy, right? They're not going to be moving around just like letting their shit like easily get
Yeah, like we do.
yeah, just like, you know, spurting like carbon, like, you know, methane into the fucking atmosphere and stuff. Like, you know, it's just you know, natural gases. Like, yeah,
Well,
uncontrolled.
isn't that a funny aspect of it though? We must be a beacon.
Oh, totally. Yeah, super loud and noisy for sure.
Yes, super loud and noisy.
Yeah, the whole dark forest thing. Like, yeah, no, like we're kind of cooked in that sense.
Yeah, we're like Lady Gaga walking around the stage. With the,
Totally
just
right. Yeah,
over here. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
100%. That probably means we've already invited like the invaders, like long ago. Would be my guess. Like, I don't know, like being realistic here. Like, if there are invasive species out there, they're fucking here. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I think about that all the time. You know, those guys getting together. So where are you going? Shit, we're going to Earth, man.
Yeah,
where are you going? No, we're going to Earth too.
Flashing all their stuff, you know, like look at them. Like, look at all their abundant resources. Look at all this.
Well, Avi said to me once, and it's just something that I never really let go of. It was fascinating. He said that he expects the ability to see city lights on the dark side of an exoplanet soon. And that's a techno signature, right? That would be a clue to something. But it seems like if he's talking about that, I wonder if we actually have that ability, at least with an exoplanet that's a little closer and a little bigger and a little more obvious. You know, when you're 100 light years away, then you're looking at small deviations of everything and stuff. But something that's closer and bigger, maybe we could see something like that, where you would be able to see the deviation of light that is being emitted from a planet as it transits.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think you hit the nail on the head, Jimmy. So ultimately, it's going to be based on how close that planet is. Even with James Webb, I can see a scenario where an exoplanet should it be sufficiently covered in like city lights, it would change the lumen and the net lumen and, you know, luminosity, right? Coming, and so even with the low photon count that hits the James Webb when it sees, right, these things, because these are far objects in the distant, and so on. They're very faint oftentimes. If you have powerful enough and enough city lights, you will change the expected value of the photon, like brightness, essentially, the luminosity. So yeah, it would require having a good enough model, in my opinion, a good enough baseline model of what we would expect, how bright that planet should be without city lights.
Right. If it's not tidally locked, you should be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, and it just requires, there's a few assumptions we'll have to make, like based on the composition of the atmosphere of that planet, based on the spectroscopy that comes from the results. You know, what can we infer about the emissions, the reflectivity, and so on, and all those properties. So,
are you working with other agencies and corporations? I'll throw some names out there: Skunk Works, NASA. Are you working with the military, the Department of Defense? And if you are, how much of it can you talk about?
I'm actually, I guess.
Yeah, you are. I knew it. I knew it. I didn't like that. You literally went, ah. Okay, so what's going on?
I had to think about it for a second, right? Because like I want to be accurate. Right now, I am not working with any government agency, any military industrial complex member. that will change like ridiculously soon, which is why I didn't think about it. So, I'm pretty sure that will. So, well, yeah, I know.
Who have you talked to? Who's approached you?
I'll just say, I'll speak in broad terms. Over the years, many of the classic three-letter agencies I'm in communications with, or have approached me for different reasons. For example, even like regulatory stuff, like regulating my satellite, right? Something very harmless. So in that case, that was NOAA. And NOAA worked with other three-letter agencies like the NRO and NGA. And so those guys were involved, for example, in regulating the satellite that I launched. And so that's one example where like they've kind of, they kind of approached me, I kind of approached them. It's the same, basically the same thing. It's very, well, it's hard to describe. Yeah, I have to be very careful here because
Yeah,
it's
I know. Ben, I
yeah.
want you to be uncomfortable. I don't want you to I don't want you to get cocky and think that I'm some kind of lay down. But this is interesting to me. And you followed me for a long time. You know exactly where my heart lies.
Many years. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so and being able to have this conversation with you with our audience, I'm telling you, this is very compelling.
So
and
cool.
We're all interested in what you're doing. So I'm not going to ease up, but I'm going to change the subject for a second, and then we're going to circle back to the three-letter agencies.
Yeah.
Explain. Okay, quantum computing allegedly operates in parallel worlds. Qubits are interacting with other particles to compute. That's insane. That doesn't even make any sense. And when you hear somebody from Google or from Microsoft or what have you talk about this, they speak about it in exactly those terms, right? And that's crazy. I mean, that's more science fiction than all the tinfoil I could plop on my head. Right.
That's
and yet they don't necessarily understand how it works.
No.
Now, so talk to Jimmy like I'm 5 years old. Explain this process to me, how a qubit is reaching out to other dimensions and parallel worlds and using that third point to calculate.
Yeah. Happily. So I want to say, right out the gate that we don't know for sure if these guys are processing computations in parallel. That comes from this idea of the many worlds hypothesis and like the Everettian branches and so on, right? So and so that's assuming those interpretations of quantum mechanics are accurate. If the many worlds or the Everettian hypothesis, the Everettian branches are true and real, then yes, qubits that are entangled in principle would be computing, I guess, in parallel universes. I do think that we're going to build AI soon enough that will find new physics that goes beyond quantum mechanics. And so all of our interpretations goes out the window. And this idea of the multiverse, there's going to be something even more insane that replaces it, in my opinion. So now,
wait. Pump the brakes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we're just now wrapping our head around many worlds and the multiverse.
Fair enough. Yeah.
String theory, all of this, 11 dimensions.
Yeah.
and entanglement. Entanglement is a very basic thought, but entanglement applied right is the craziest shit ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's so basic. Two particles, right? Two particles entangled, changing each other's state. Okay, that's a very basic thing. We can all picture two particles. I change, you change at the same time. Okay, crazy, but we can wrap our head around it. But really, it is the craziest shit that you can possibly imagine, isn't it?
It really is.
So
Yeah.
you're saying that it's about to get crazier.
That would be my guess. In the next decade, we're going to find new physics that blows your mind and finally explains anti-gravity. In fact, I think that the Department of Defense should worry. This is what I've been saying publicly a lot lately, is that AI is getting so smart that most of the classified physics in the last 70, 80 years will become rediscovered and rediscoverable by even a teenager. That is where we're headed with the kind of AI we're building. I'm just saying the obvious part out loud here. So, yeah, just food for thought. Yeah.
Is it something to be feared? And who is regulating AI?
It should be both feared and embraced, as with any other technology. I'm just pointing out that like something should like this should incentivize a new strategy where the current one where it's science by suppression or suppression by science, right? Like you get if you make too much progress, like I'm willing to bet if I made certain national security related inventions, it would get, I would not be able to patent it because there's national secrecy acts that can be enacted, preventing me from actually being able to even make money from it. Now, that's just like the first level of control that happens to scientists and engineers and innovators. And so I think that we have to reframe and rethink that entire strategy, rethink the whole, 800 people on the bigot list, reverse engineering alien spacecraft, rethink all of that, because all of that physics, a lot of the science that we've gleaned, much of it is about to get out anyways, like it'll rediscover. So let's just get on with it and create something new. So that's what I'm trying to do, at least with OpenNHI and my other companies. Yeah.
How do we understand ET shows up and starts talking to us about something that is way beyond our knowledge base?
Yeah.
How do we understand that tech? We only know what we know, right? That's it. We know more every single day. We're learning more, but if it's something way beyond, how do we understand?
That's a great question, Jimmy. We have to basically distill everything we observe about these things down to the basic science, and then work our way back up to what we're observing using human science. So essentially find the least common denominator in known basic science and observabilities and try to build off of that. So the practical example here, or one analogy, is think back to a villager in the 18th or 17th century, and you have this fighter jet that like is entered into their slipstream through a time machine or something, and this F-18 Hornet just like breaks the sonic barrier and like scrams over this like villager. Now and it crashes. So boom, like loud boom somewhere, and you see loud smoke, unfortunately, and stuff like that, right? This is a legit UFO crash now. It's quite literally, to the villager, an unidentified flying object. Like the guy's never even seen a machine before. Combustion has not been discovered yet. Like the basic laws of the second law of thermodynamics has not even discovered yet, right? Like the Carnot cycle and stuff like that. So, in that timeline, though, humanity would have accelerated way faster. We would be in like living in Jupiter right now. We'd be doing this podcast in like Andromeda or something if that had happened, in my opinion. Because essentially, what the villager could have done is, or the village, or the king, or the kingdom, whatever is ruling that thing, whoever owns that object, right? Who jurisdiction it is, would essentially have the benefit of realizing that you can actually create something heavier than air that floats and lives. Because building something that's denser than air that flies or floats was hearsay. In fact, Lord Kelvin, who discovered the Kelvin scale, 0 degrees Kelvin and so on and so forth, he famously stated, literally 16 years before the Wright brothers managed to take off and get human flight, he literally stated that human flight will never happen because you can never levitate something that's denser than air or heavier than air. So, you can never build a machine that's heavier than air that's flying. So, it was just like a very, basic statement, but that was basically this villager in this group now has this insight that took 200 years longer, to discover in our timeline right now without that. So that's one example where we can take principles of whatever these UFOs are doing and accelerate. At least just knowing what's possible, we'll be able to be like, okay, how did they do that? What configuration, in the case of the F-18, right? What configuration of materials enabled this flight dynamic? And so the beauty is that in the 18th century, that's over 4,300 plus years into the dawn of material science. So it's not like we were stupid. We actually knew how to make metals and alloys. We actually could have started tinkering with lighter and lighter weight alloys and so on. It may not have been as advanced as what we create today, but we would have been able to create toy planes with basalt wood, for example, right? So all these things would have enabled the discovery of flight, human flight, and so on and so forth, much faster. That's where I went. Yeah.
The other day, this was, I want to be accurate, about a month ago after the show. I'm in bed, lights are off, and that's when the freaky stuff starts to go down in my brain and I start to think about stuff.
Yeah.
And this thought popped in my head, and I talked about it the next day on the show. It was one of those moments where I just went, wow, whoa. And I thought to myself, I just want your take on this. Every particle in the universe has to be entangled. Everyone.
I feel like
And I just, how do you entangle maybe everything just is already entangled. And if that is the case, what would happen if they became untangled? And I just sat and I thought about that I couldn't go to sleep. I thought about that for a while. And I've never heard anybody else speak. I don't know where this thought came from. Maybe I channeled it from some ET and Zeta Reticuli. I don't know. But
that's awesome.
Do you think it's possible that every particle in the universe could be entangled?
Yeah, I absolutely do. In fact, there are theories like that take, for example, ADS-CFT, which is the anti-de Sitter space conformal field theory correspondence, which I can get into in a second. They basically take these models of space-time and treat it as networks of entangled particles. So basically, the idea is that you recover space-time by just having a network of entangled particles all the way down. We're starting from the bottom upwards. So that's I definitely subscribe to that model. I think it's inevitable that everything is entangled with everything else.
Really? Okay. So I'm not crazy.
Not at all. I think that's scientifically correct. In fact, I think that the more powerful our quantum computers and our artificial intelligence and our quantum artificial intelligence becomes, the better we're going to be able to understand this quantum entanglement network and be able to do things like teleportation, teleport physical objects, predict the future, predict the past, look into nearby universes, the shit that ETs and NHI seem to be able to do. So
right. And so wouldn't that, you said teleportation, and I like that, but that would suggest that the conversations that we are having today and in the past about telepathy or channeling would be accurate if everything in your brain is entangled with another NHI.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, technically, yeah, it's a good point. Everything in our brain is entangled with NHI, and everything in their brain is entangled with us. As
Right.
long as we're in this universe, that would be an objective fact. The only exception is if they somehow are like an agent of God or something, like just capable of being truly outside, right, the physical axiomatic rules of this universe. Like, sure, you can't, I guess, discount that as a possibility ever, I suppose, right? So now that being said, you asked a really good question about disentanglement. Now we
Right,
do
right. But see, that's the scary part. That's like Hawking radiation and entropy in reverse.
totally, yeah,
Right. That's the second law, right? That's
yeah.
that's a bad day.
It is a very bad day. Yeah, it's the day that time stops, literally. So, you know, you would no longer have moments. You would no longer have causality. Um, in fact, depending on how the disentanglement happens, you would have like complete breakdowns in space time and events, and insane Mandela effects probably would occur. I don't know, and that would be for the split second.
Right.
For the split second, you even are alive, and then nothing exists.
Yeah, you may not even know it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, there are scenarios where the entire universe can get destroyed and you wouldn't know it for sure. Vacuum decay is one example. So that's the idea, the theoretical idea that the universe is not in its true ground state. It's in a metastable state. And so once it settles into its ground state, it's going to do it unevenly. So there's going to be a nucleation point. And when that happens, it's going to be like space-time cracking. Like imagine like ice just cracking. So space-time will crack and nucleate. Basically everything, and that nucleation spreads until all of space-time finally reaches its new ground state. And once that happens, nothing exists anymore as we know it. Like all order would be lost.
Yeah, it comes apart.
Yeah.
I've thought about that so much. This is the crazy dark part of my brain. Entropy is a freaky thing.
It is.
And
Yeah.
it's a totally freaky thing. And
we still don't understand it, by the way. I just want to point that out. It's still
what's that?
We still don't understand it, like in my opinion. Like,
Well, you know what? I understand it. You move into a house with your kids and there's no furniture. Go look at your kid's bedroom and then look at your kid's bedroom in 2 years.
Right.
That's entropy.
That's
entropy. That's chaos, right? But entropy, there's a weird thing. Like if we look at our sun or a star that is stable for a few billion years, we don't really see entropy there. We see like stability, right? And so when you have the temperature of space right now, pretty smooth for 13 billion years. But if that goes out of whack and entropy starts to play out, we come unglued really quick. And what happens if gravity, what happens if what happens if particles start to, if those forces aren't applied anymore? Like our bodies, do we just go into, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a miracle that particles are held together right now, seemingly forever. But what happens when that energy potentially runs out and gravity decides to do something else? And these weak forces go, you know what? Enough is enough.
Totally.
No, I'm being serious, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, what's the egg that gets put together again on what's that
Humpty Dumpty.
children's, what's that? Yeah, Humpty Dumpty. There ain't going to be anybody running around putting Humpty Dumpty back together.
No. It's a good point. Yeah, certainly not. Probably not. I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, Humpty Dumpty, everybody outsmarted us on that and beat us to the punch. Do you think entropy will eventually just play out in a universal scale, from the smallest macro quantum all the way up to the largest macro?
Yeah, it seems that way, unless somebody invents a way which would completely violate the second law of thermodynamics. So I don't think it's ever going to happen. But if you can actually control and reverse the direction of entropy, that's interesting. But again, that's not technically possible. So yeah, but that being said, though, because like the universe is inherently it started in a low entropy state, and so an entropy will continue to increase, right? Like entropy is just constantly increasing. And had it not done that, life wouldn't exist because life constantly captures free energy. And so it minimizes free energy. So it maximizes entropy, but we're constantly consuming free energy from the sun, right? That's captured via like plants and like, animals and stuff like that. And so eventually that free energy, what you're touching on, gets fully consumed and spread out. And so what happens is that you end up in a very maximally entropic state, high entropy state, where the universe no longer can increase in entropy because it's in a maximally entropic state. I believe that, at least based on what Penrose predicts, I think he's the most correct here. The clock will reset at that point, because if entropy is no longer increasing, then time no longer exists according to our known definitions of physics, because the arrow of time is correlated to the increase in entropy. If you no longer have the increase in entropy, you no longer have an arrow of time. There is no forward arrow of time. And so the clock would reset and the universe would either collapse and then expand. That's called cyclical conformal cosmology. That's what Penrose predicts. And I generally think something like that is going to happen in the long scale, which is why we have to get good at planetary hopping, then galaxy hopping, then multiverse hopping, and just get the hell out of this universe. Yeah.
We have to blow this popsicle stand eventually.
Exactly.
No, we do. Yeah, we 100%.
Do. Yeah, I don't want to find out what happens at the heat death of the universe.
Well, what about? Okay, all right. Hold on. Then we're going to take a break.
Sure.
What about the heat death of somebody that thinks too much?
Oh,
you like that?
I love that. Yeah. Nice.
I'm being serious. You're every time you have a thought, your brain's using energy and it heats up. So what about somebody that thinks too much?
Yeah.
Will entropy take over and brains blow up like in Mars Attacks?
I mean, you can overclock a GPU, for example. Like
it's the same thing. Yes. You like where I'm going, right?
Yeah, totally.
What's wrong with deep? His brain's overheated. You got to throw him in an ice tub.
Yeah. If fully life was that easy, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only Deep Prasad, is with us. We're talking about tech. We're talking about quantum computing. We're talking about the search for ET and UAPs and life in the universe. All of that and much more when we come back after this short break. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's fade to black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Today we're headed to Bolivia, Tiwanaku, Peru, and of course, Pumapunku. Brian, exciting. Thank you so much for everything, my friend.
Always an honor. Right behind us is the sacred river of the Inca that goes past Machu Picchu. So we're going to be driving up to its source at 15,000 feet above sea level and then down to Lake Titicaca.
So today we hit 15,000 feet.
Yes.
Crazy. And you can do it with us. All you have to do is go to hiddenincatours.com. Simple. We've got 2 tours coming up next year, one in June for the summer solstice, right? And then another one right here in November. So hiddenincatours.com. Come and hang out with Brian and I and his amazing team.
Right on.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Deep Prasad is with us. And we're talking about physics, quantum computing, the search for ET, and all of that. So we are working on that stuff tonight. Deep has gone to the little boy's room, and I'm waiting for him to pop back in. But talking about entropy really quick, I wanted to do a reset. Those ideas and entropy and how we apply it here on Earth, one of the things that I'm a little bit afraid of at the moment is getting ahead of ourselves and allowing entropy to sneak up on us and show its face in a bad way. And the idea of artificial intelligence, also the internet, and the way that the world is now connected, we are moving at a technological speed that is so fast that entropy could take over and show itself, and everything could come apart, I think, just as quickly as we put all of this together. And it's one of my fears, one of the things that are in my Pandora's box as we open this up. And Deep is listening to me right now. Deep, is that something that is that a concern of yours, that we may be moving too fast right now, and with technology, and technology may outrace us?
Yes and no, Jimmy. Absolutely. So I think in some parts, in some aspects, I think technology is getting ahead of us. In other parts, I think we're not moving fast enough. And so, what do I mean by that? So, I think certain technologies, which is why I do want to help create. Yeah, this is worth like hours of conversation at some point. But like, I do think autonomous weapon systems are a hot topic right now. So I see that potentially getting ahead of us. We might regret like creating billions and billions of humanoid robots and billions of drones, and then in the middle of birthing artificial superintelligence, which is currently what we're doing. So so that could like, but you know what? Like that being said, all the people right now are adults in the room, so that's good. Like in my opinion, there are at least there's a lot of people who like Elon and Sam Altman and these guys, Palmer Luckey, the people building AI systems. I do think that they're generally quite rational beings, and they're consider the risks and so on and so forth. We're also moving too slowly in terms of drug discovery, finding new materials, new chemicals, new molecules that improve our lifespan. I would rather us accelerate that than accelerating, of course, defense weapons. But what we have to do, I think, is play a two sort of short-term game and a long-term game. The short-term game is, and this is just the stance that I think I've developed, that's sort of more matured over the at least changed or evolved over the past few years. Certainly since the last time we spoke. I think we're headed towards this sort of like multipolar war type scenario. Our worst case scenario is that we actually hit World War III, right? And like that would be the worst case scenario. Our best case scenario is that we're in this weird Cold War, continuous Cold War thing, where there's multipolar conflicts. So you have an increasing number of battles and conflicts happening all around the world, broken supply chains, hyperinflation, so global devaluation of currencies, which is what's happening at the moment. The US dollar purchasing power, right, went from $1 to 2 cents in the last 100 years. And so what that's leading to is a forcing function mechanism that says that we have two choices right now. One, go with the flow and just watch as the world literally reshapes itself in front of us, and the current the power dynamics, the paradigm, the world order that we grew up in, like it really is changing right fucking now.
Yeah,
Like
it is.
it never did in decades and decades and decades. So we option one, we chill as America, as the West, let's just say
Just
West,
let it play out. Just let it play out.
see what happens, like just chill. Option number two is actually get ahead of it and shape the next century, and make it sort of a world where American values are at least preserved, and principles, which I think are super important. Freedom, particularly, is literally on the line. I hate to sound dramatic, but that is ultimately what we're up against here. Like there's only two power systems in the world that works, and democracy is a young idea. Like the idea that you and I can just we would be peasants, in most systems. Like the idea that we can just get on a podcast during, like, that's not normal. Like that's not part of like what could come. So yeah, sorry to get off my get on a soapbox here, but
Well, it's true. And then we can take this technology and these thought processes and these thinkers and turn around and start thinking about real scenarios like faster than light. How is ET getting here? What is the propulsion system? Is it something that's interdimensional,
yeah.
or is it something else? And I know that this is something that you think about a lot. How is ET doing it? How, and there could be Well, there's multiple possibilities here,
Totally.
but we have a traditional spaceship or vehicle, right, with a candle on the back that's being ignited and increasing velocity. There's that. There is jumping between dimensions. There's wormholes. There's folding space. If we follow what Einstein, it's kind of weird. I'm wondering if Einstein is just wrong on so many levels now, but that anything reaching the speed of light and infinite mass, time stops, and therefore going faster than the speed of light is like not possible for a physical object. So how is ET doing it?
Excellent question. So, what Einstein specifically was stating was a point on time dilation. So, the faster you're going, the more time dilation occurs, right? So that's where the whole twins paradox with the astronaut comes in, and so on. Where the ship time just goes slower relative in the relative frame of reference to the observer on Earth. If you're moving fast enough, time will go so slow that it effectively stops if you get to the speed of light. That's like what he's saying should never happen. And of course, time can never stop because that violates, again, the second law of thermodynamics as well. Because, you effectively have a ground state. This is why, particles never actually stop vibrating. They are always vibrating, even at their lowest energy state, which is such an interesting property to think about. But yeah, all that is to say though is that with the whole Einstein's time dilation and like just to answer your broader question of like how are they getting here, right? And like how are they manipulating space time? I think that there are certainly different kinds of scenarios that we're looking at where you probably have like homegrown extraterrestrials with like technologies that are probably less than 1,000 years ahead of ours. And if it's less than 1,000 years, I'm just going to use that as a benchmark. Maybe
Sure.
the right benchmark should be like 400 years. Unsure. Like we'll find out soon enough, as time goes. But and those guys are almost definitely using some combination of quantum artificial superintelligence, like quantum thermodynamic, like ASI, like artificial superintelligence, plus biological intelligence. That would be the guess, which means that they have at least a quark gluon level understanding of the world, or deeper than that, at least potentially subplanckian, realistically. So meaning that they can get down to really, really, really small scales of the universe and space time, and they can manipulate it. So we can manipulate atomic energy, and we can do it somewhat well, but mostly poorly, right? So like nuclear reactions are really us gambling. We're just shooting shit, right? Until we get a reaction. An advanced civilization will be able to control the nucleons and be able to create very, very high precision nuclear reactions. And so they will have far higher yield rates in their nuclear propulsion systems than we do. Now, if you take that trend 1,000 years, what you're going to get is an intelligence or a civilization that can effectively start controlling not just nucleons. Nucleons and nuclei are essentially made of quarks and gluons, right? So they control quarks and gluons and things that are even smaller than that. And so you're effectively going to get essentially a metric that comes from this. And the metric that comes out of it, I call it Yug Cybera, and I can get into the etymology at some point. But the metric is your control over matter. So I think level 1, Yug Cybera civilizations are probably mostly ETs, and those ETs are in this universe, right? Or like in our galaxy or nearby galaxies. It would have to be not that far away. Like it would have to be galaxies like Andromeda at most. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because basically what ends up happening, if we think about it, like kind of like practically speaking, um, space is so vast that just traveling at the speed of light is not like fast enough. Like even if I can
Takes you
travel,
forever. Just the Milky Way
it's
is
insane.
150,000 light years
Insane. Yeah,
across.
yeah,
Just
that's
our
right.
and most people don't understand. They think, and I understand. I get why people think this way. That stuff is really close by. Our frigging Milky Way has probably up to possibly 1 trillion stars. We're still counting them, right?
Many trillion.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So it's 150,000 light years across. But if you back out of our Milky Way, we turn into a star. You know what I mean? The further back you go, we're just a little tiny, and that's how big our Milky Way is. 150,000 light years across. It would take you at the speed of light 150,000 years to go to the other side of our own Milky Way. And we just think it's all close by. It's not, is it?
No, exactly. It's so far away. Even and that's just our freaking galaxy. That's like not even the farthest galaxy. Some galaxies are billions of light years away, which is crazy. So you'd have to be a billion years old by the time you get to some of these destinations. I mean, what are we talking about, right? So like, so that means that there's hierarchies well beyond the light barrier, which is what we should call it. Just like, you know, how we used to call it the sound barrier during like the 1950s before we broke the speed of sound. I feel like, you know, so level one civilizations can probably get maybe, let's call it like 10, within less than 10 times the speed of light, like as a general proximity. You know, and we can, it's not a bad guess, like, you know, not a bad bar, because, you know, for us to get 10 times the speed of sound was a legit accomplishment. So it's not a bad threshold when you get 10 past a certain barrier, like, you know, so and those species, yeah, I think, you know, they still have to figure some stuff out. So, for example, you know, if they want to do a 100-year long journey, or like, let's say, even a little bit better, 1,000-year long journey, right? They still have to last 100+ years as a life form. And if they only have one times the speed of sound, speed of light, then even a journey to like Proxima Centauri from there to here still takes like 4.2 years at best case scenario. So, you know, and of course, again, to your point with the Milky Way, that's still 150,000 years. So it's
So
so
they must be okay. Okay. All right.
you
So
see where I'm going?
they are doing something that is so crazy, but yet very easy. That I don't know what it is. You know, I don't know what that is, but to get here,
Yeah.
you're doing it not because it's difficult. You're doing it because you're just jumping in the car and driving to McDonald's. It's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. It is easy. It's a good point. I bet the aliens don't think about their antimatter, you know, interplanetary multiverse traversing, you know, propulsion system. It's probably just chill for them, like at that point.
Completely chill.
Yeah,
Com-
100%. I'm willing to bet that the technology is magnificent and so complex. It's probably godlike, like,
Well,
like
that's what I'm saying. It's that easy. You
yeah,
know, husband and wife,
yeah,
Alpha Centauri, right? Zeta Reticuli, whatever. Just pick something. And they're sitting there watching TV. And he's like, man, let's go to Earth and hit an In-N-Out burger. What do you say? All right. You know,
yeah,
and they're back in their bed with
right,
warm In-N-Out and a
yeah,
chocolate shake.
yeah,
I mean,
totally.
it's probably that easy, just like
Yeah,
we do it here, and we don't think. You brought up a really good point. You know, if you go back 200 years, and 200 years is nothing. You can go back 150 years. Go back to 1850.
Right.
and go talk to somebody on a wagon train, going to the west, right?
Totally.
Wagon train. And you went up to them and said, you know what, man? We leave the house and drive 20 miles for food. And we go to a drive-up window and we talk to somebody with a telephone, and they cook our food, and we jump back, and then we're back at home eating our food before it gets cold. And they would be that's black magic voodoo shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be.
Right.
Absolutely. They would be like, what kinds of kings are you that you can get all this? Like, you just go somewhere in 20 minutes, you travel 20 miles, like what?
Well,
you get food?
Exactly. So I think it's like that. I just don't.
Totally.
Some of it has to be
but
physical.
Somebody
shit.
had to invent that, is my point. Like someone had to invent the car, obviously, and thermodynamics. Yeah.
Well, if we don't have to go into the full story, but when you had your encounter and you're looking at those ships, and you're a young academic, right? And you see something like that. Now you have to postulate so many different things. How is this happening? How did they get here? It's not like these ships. We've heard descriptions of the inside. It's always a couple of seats and a control panel. You don't hear about a bedroom or a pool table.
Never.
or things like that. They're doing this extremely fast, so fast that they just sit down and then get up. It's like that. I mean, they're probably not spending any time doing this. So when you had your encounter, what went through your mind?
Well, the first part was complete panic and shock and fear, like existential level fear. Grip my body and mind. And then after that, it was like curiosity and calm. The calmness was completely artificially induced. I would say my true neurotransmitters and my actual nervous system response was somehow suppressed using some kind of neural technology, would be my guess, assuming I'm not crazy here, as obviously the caveat emptor of the general, context of all this. But it was curiosity, it was interest and intrigue. I think the thing that did stand out was that as I, just to the comment on the ship part, as I would lift my neck, my head, I could see the underside of the ship. Like my roof would just melt away, and I would see a straight up. And it was the crazy thing is it was rectangular, which right off the bat threw me off. Because I was 3 months in to this whole UFO, as a modern adult, at least. I'd looked into it when I was younger, but so I was, you're I was expecting a saucer or something, at least subconsciously I must have, because it just looks so weird. But yeah, it was rectangular, and it was rounded at the ends, which is cool. It wasn't it wasn't a perfect piece of metal, plate or shield or something necessarily. As I lifted my neck further, it actually came closer, and then at one point, as I put my head, or I could see inside of it, and this is the part where I would say my memories are somewhat questionable. It's dark. It's it was either dark or purposely, I don't know, blurred out or some shit. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on there. But I remember floating lights and beautiful colors and orbs and stuff. Maybe panels, I'm not sure. But that's it. Darkness. Other than that, but I do remember seeing stuff. I just don't know why. I can't really remember. And I try not to, force it. So
check this out. Okay, yeah. This is what I do for sport. Check this out. Check out this post.
So where's the proof of life?
This guy Jason to me. So where's the proof of life, even bacterial, outside of Earth? This is where I have fun with somebody. All right. So check this out. This is one of the craziest things. Asteroid Bennu. Holy shit, right?
Huge.
Okay. So yeah. So asteroid Bennu, Jason, listen to me. All right. It's time for you to go to school. Asteroid Bennu, we launch a mission to this asteroid, land a probe on it, scoop up stuff, and bring it back to Earth. It lands in the Utah desert last year and a half ago, right? Crash lands. We take the canister, we open it up, and we study what we scooped up off of an asteroid in the friggin' vacuum of space. Now, this is just an asteroid. How many asteroids are out there? A lot, right? A lot. There's a lot of stuff flying around in space. So we analyze the contents. And what do we find? What do we find? We find the 20 amino acids for RNA. The 20 basic sugars that make up RNA. And if that isn't enough for you, we also find the 5 proteins that make up DNA. Now, hold on a minute. RNA is the precursor and the instruction set to tell DNA what to do. All right? No RNA, no DNA, no life. No DNA, no life. On this asteroid, we get RNA and DNA on the same rock. Holy shit. That is crazy. That is the gnarliest, craziest thing ever floating around in space. So what does that suggest to me? Well, it's obvious. DNA is universal. Particles are finite. Okay? Particles can only combine so many different ways. They don't combine in infinite ways. And particles on the other side of the universe are the same that we have here. Hydrogen is the same, right? Helium, oxygen, pick something, is the same on the other side of the universe. And apparently, so is RNA and DNA. And if that asteroid crashed on another planet with some water on it, you've got life. It's crazy, isn't it? What did you make of that when the report started to come out about asteroid Bennu? What went through your mind?
Yeah, so first of all, that was an excellent summarization of asteroid Bennu, Jamie, and a great response as well to Johnny, I believe it was.
Jason.
Jason, cool. Right on. Excellent. Yeah, I think the fact that the precursors, the ingredients to, DNA is observed on these asteroids lends credence to this idea of panspermia for sure. And I think, abiogenesis likely is not a unique process, right? The process of which, biological matter arose from inanimate matter. So whatever that transition was must not be unique. In fact, I think that we're going to develop, again, really powerful enough quantum chemistry and physics-based software that lets us simulate the physics and underlying chemistry that led to the emergent phenomenon that we call life today. Because really what we're looking for is not just the ingredients for life, which it seems to be now, which is crazy to your point, abundant. Like it's
everywhere.
It really, it is. Yeah. Space dust is made of carbon. Isn't that insane? Every single piece of thing that we observe effectively that's in our telescope in the James Webb has some carbon attached to it. That should be mind blowing, to people. I don't know. It's pretty insane. So
Well, I think about that all the time. And when anybody, somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson wants to debate me on this fact, well, give me the proof of life. No, Neil, give me the proof that there isn't.
yeah, nice.
You can't do it. Have you
Yeah,
been there?
yeah.
What you know what I mean? What I have is things like Bennu,
Right.
right? And it's with the vastness of everything that there is.
Yeah.
And again, back to my point about particles and the way that they combine, they only combine so many different ways. The amount of life out there, the number is so big. It's got to have 80 or 100 zeros behind it, 10 to something crazy. It's just a number that is so big, and that's a fact. That is not that is something that I will debate anybody with, and they're going to lose. There's no way you can win. And I'm not a PhD, Deep. I'm not. I used to smoke a lot of pot, but you know what I mean? I just think about this in a very logical fashion. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, it is a numbers game. And I think the numbers and time is in our favor. The odds are, for us and against the skeptics.
I used to use this metaphor, all right, about Earth, just about Earth. The multi-worlds theory and us and infinite versions of us out there and so forth. All right, that's a fancy thing to think about, and it's fun, right? Okay, so what? Okay, so yeah, I get that. But it's like this.
It's still always interesting. Yeah.
It's simple.
Yeah.
So you and I are sitting playing cards.
Yep.
Right. And we're playing poker, and I deal you 5 cards. I deal me 5 cards.
Mm-hmm.
You look at your cards, and then
I don't know how to play poker, by the way.
Neither do I, but stay with the metaphor though, Deep, if you would. And so we reshuffle the deck.
Yeah.
I deal you 5, I deal me 5. We may not have the same hand, but eventually we will. Okay? Eventually those cards are going to shuffle exactly the same, and we're going to deal the same hand. That's the Earth is the exact same way. Eventually out there, the cards are going to shuffle, and the exact same version of Earth is going to appear. And that's it. That's it. And the universe is a big place. And there is a lot of versions of us out there, identical versions of us.
Yeah, especially if the universe is literally infinite, it's inevitable that Earth repeats an infinite amount of times, actually, by definition, which is a crazy idea.
Here's another one. You and I are cruising out in our starship, right? Forever. You and I have achieved immortality. Maybe we've uploaded our consciousness into androids, right? And you and I are just cruising around for 1 trillion years. Eventually, we're going to pull up on a Volkswagen floating in space. It's
totally.
Like, how did that get here? Well, particles are going to combine and run into each other in the craziest of ways, and it will happen. I don't know how many times it will happen,
right?
But it will,
right?
Right? I mean, this is not crazy talk, is it?
It's not. It's a matter. Well, it's a philosophy of physics talk, technically, and philosophy of mathematics topic, because ultimately, number one, we need to establish, is the universe infinitely expanding, and if so, which kind of infinite are we talking about? Because Cantor, for example, Georgi Cantor, discovered Cantor's hierarchy of infinites, where we used to think that there's independently different kinds of infinites that we can name and quantify. It's so funny. I just got a space track. Orbital satellite conjunction notice. Basically, whenever something gets too close to my satellite, I get a Space Force notification.
It's a Chinese rocket booster.
Yeah, probably. That's funny. I'll open it later. But yeah, yeah. Sorry, what was I saying? I got off.
Infinite.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, so Georgie Cantor, he realized that rather than naming unique infinite sets, like the set of all whole numbers, or the set of all rationals, or the set of all irrationals, like the set of whole numbers, right? The sum of those numbers is still smaller. That's still a smaller infinite than the number of irrational numbers and the digits in those irrational numbers, right? So Cantor basically generalized this, and he realized there's all sorts of infinities. So he created an infinite hierarchy of infinities. So there's an infinite number of infinities. Think of it like that.
It has to be that. That's not crazy. That's
right?
not crazy. It has to be that. It has to be that way.
Well, that's interesting, because then what is the universe? Because if the universe is an infinite set of infinities, then there's an infinite set of infinite sets of infinities. So it's hard to say exactly what kind it is. Now, depending on what kind it is, it's not impossible, but whatever kind it is, that will dictate and determine the states that we can observe the universe in, which then determines how we calculate entropy. Once you know the number of possible states in a system, both known and hidden states, uncharacterized states, only then do you know the exact kind of entropy that you're dealing with. So just a side note. So that the idea of the car reconfiguring itself in a Volkswagen, sort of appearing from, let's say, space dust, or maybe some parallel Earth 3.0 somewhere out there, right? Like that probability is tied to entropy, and that entropy is tied to the number of states, hidden states, and the number of hidden states will be directly tied to the kind of infinity that we live in, like infinite universe.
It has to be that way, though.
Yeah.
There can't be another version of it. When I hear different cosmologists and physicists speak about this, where time started at the Big Bang, that our universe, there's only one, and beyond that, space is void. That is juvenile thinking.
Nice.
Space is forever.
Yeah.
Do you know how far forever is? It's a fucking long ways, man.
That's common.
Right? And so versions of this in forever, that's an infinite number.
Yeah.
That's it. How far back in time can we go? Forever.
Well, beyond
time didn't start 13.8 billion years ago. That's bullshit.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think also, by definition, something must have existed before the Big Bang. I'm pretty sure.
It had. I just told you.
Yeah.
It's forever, man, in all directions.
For sure.
And that's crazy big.
It is.
It's mind blowing. And so when you think of those concepts, one of them being the observable universe being 90 billion light years across. And a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, isn't the universe only 13.8 billion years old? You're not looking at it the right way, right? Okay, so the observable universe is 80 billion light years across. And we now assume that the edges of that are there because everything has exceeded the speed of light in its expansion and has dropped off the cliff. And now that brings into this idea, which people don't talk about. we will never know what was there. We'll never catch it. We'll never catch up to it. If it has expanded out past the speed of light and has dropped off, we will never know. But in that expansion of space, they don't know. They don't observe traveling at the speed of light. It's only from our position that it has exceeded the speed of light. They are just in the expansion of space, right? And they're living life.
Totally.
They're living right. But we'll never know. Ever. That's crazy, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. Until we get to alien level, like next super crazy advanced alien technology or like etheric being energy.
Yeah. I was talking to Isaac Arthur about this. and this is what he said, and he's a brilliant physicist, man, and I really like the way he looks at stuff.
Yes.
But he poo-poos on the ET visiting Earth ideas. I think I've got him coming around, though. I've been working on him for 10 years. I think he's seeing the light. But this is what he said, Deep. He said it's easier to travel between universes than it is between galaxies in a universe. And he said, if we're being visited by ET, they're coming from another universe. Crazy thought. What do you think about that?
It is a crazy thought. It's not impossible. It's not impossible at all. It depends on how space-time is configured, really. So if it's like configured in a hyperdimensional, like a 5-dimensional hypercube, for example, then there could easily be shortcuts that you could take that are energetically cheaper than trying to figure out ways within your universe.
That's what exactly right. You're exactly right. That's what he said. And it's a mind-bending thought when you really start to apply it. We're thinking the Pleiades, right? Or we're thinking Orion's belt.
Yeah.
When it just may be another universe altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, or just a different pocket of reality that we don't have the words or physics for. Oh.
Wait, now let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
If okay, let's just go with dimensions. Let's just speak in terms of dimensions.
Yeah.
If something is off by a little bit, just one number in one equation in that other dimension, where their time is just a little bit off, their gravity is just a little bit, whatever, it only takes one digit of one equation.
Totally.
Would we experience them? Would we see them?
Yeah, we would. And the way we would experience them would be different based on how the universe is set up. Again, going back to the structure of space-time, it would depend on that. So, for example, if you have, because effectively the universal constants or the universal constants of space-time, we assume are universal
as we experience them. Yes,
exactly.
And as we know them. Right. Okay.
Right. So theoretically, you could totally have a different part of the universe have a different, space-time constant that, like, this new life form, let's say, sort of evolved under. Maybe the speed of light is a little bit faster. Maybe Planck's length is a little bit smaller, right? And they just like evolved in that way. Naturally, they would still be part of the same fabric of space-time as we are. It's just that their mass and all these other things, the chemical reactions, probably therefore their conscious experience, all of these things shift and change, but we would still be able to experience them. Now, my comment about it depends, now how we experience them depends on how the universe is set up. What that means is that, you might have a scenario where we experience everything except for the overlap in the constant where there's a difference. And like there's some weird like weirdness there, where either laws of physics breaks down, and we can't measure anything in it, or something doesn't make sense. And by laws of physics breaking down, what I mean is that there's paradoxes that are fundamentally not resolvable. So that would be one way the universe could be set up, right? And the other way is that the paradoxes are resolvable, and we see some weird mesh form or existence that neither parties would ever experience of the other. So they would see, for example, us in their presence and us in their presence, our modification to space-time would merge, and some new halfway point would emerge where our realities have to reconcile, the narratives have to reconcile, and in order to make sure there's no paradoxes. In that case, you and I might be warped. We might
Right.
skin color might turn green or some weird shit like that. Like,
Right.
God knows, in order to be still reconciled, and the universe doesn't break down. So yeah, I don't know if that's
No, that makes perfect sense. It would have to meet somewhere in the middle.
That's probable. Yeah, I mean, because the alternative is like you're just dealing with paradoxes, and like, are there paradoxes in the universe? Yes, but like, are they fundamental? Like, I imagine not. Like, the universe would break down. Like, it doesn't, make sense to have paradoxes at the very fundamental baseline.
We would be like in a Ren and Stimpy cartoon.
I don't know what Ren and Stimpy is.
Oh, you don't know what Ren? After the show,
yeah,
go watch Ren and Stimpy.
Sure.
Yeah. The other part of this, though, I'm going to throw this out there at you. I had again, this is a late night, my brain working. I just think about physics so much and consciousness, because I'm stuck between both of these worlds, right? And but I suddenly had this thought, and the thought was this: that if consciousness, as our community describes it and defines it, is universal and exists everywhere, and putting that entanglement thought off to the side, that's not part of this. But if consciousness is indeed universal and throughout the universe, it may be the dark energy that we're chasing. Not dark matter, dark energy. And those forces and those fundamental forces that seem to be shaping the universe, that we can't see it, we can't measure it, we don't understand what's going on. We've labeled it dark energy to fit the equations and make the algorithms work. Okay, all right, it's got to be out there. We're going to find it eventually.
Yeah.
Could dark energy just be consciousness?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Jimmy. I mean, it is possible in a world where consciousness is a purely physical or largely physical interaction, and it is completely contingent on these fundamental forces, some that we haven't yet observed. If that is the case, then yeah, maybe dark energy is that field that's sort of like permeating space-time, right? So of course there's dark matter, technically, that it's a misnomer, I guess, to call it matter, but yeah, it is possible that dark energy sort of like powers the acceleration or expansion of the universe, and that we live in this I guess like space, like world or reality where space-time is best thought of as a unit of thought rather than the other way around. Yeah.
And it's, I think, I love the word fundamental. I do. I love the word fundamental. And sometimes we overthink shit. We do. Things, trying to break things down. That's why E equals MC squared.
Yeah.
It's just a few little symbols. It's so elegant.
It is.
Right? It's so elegant. It's so fundamental.
It is. It's also our prison.
Yeah, right. You can't argue your way out of that. Yeah,
For
for
now,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. But maybe these ideas are more fundamental and basic than we're trying to make them out to be. We're trying to make things too complex, like consciousness and dark energy. And dark matter is another concept altogether, and even antimatter is another concept that is out there. It's been proven,
Well, I
but
mean, in this analogy, dark matter could be, clumps of consciousness.
well, yeah, it could be. And when we look, okay, so when we look at dark matter and even antimatter, totally different things theoretically.
They are, yeah.
But if what has been proposed in theory that every particle of matter, antimatter identical, was created at the same time. All right. Well, man, I'm just going to say it. That's a shit ton of antimatter. Where
Yeah,
is it?
it is. Yeah.
Where is it? Where,
The-
somebody tell, if that's the case, there should be atomic explosions with those collisions happening
There
all over
actually
the place.
is, yeah. So if you look at this is you may not be a PhD, but you're a very smart scientist, Jimmy. Because I would say there is a lot of remnant antimatter still, theoretically, especially some, for example, originating that's hypothesized. Some of it should account for the antimatter that we observe at the center of our galaxy. So we observe a frequency, I believe it's like 117 hertz or something like that, megahertz. But yeah, we observe a frequency of high frequency gamma rays that are being created essentially from from antimatter explosions, and so some of that antimatter could very well be from the early beginnings of the universe. So yeah, the other aspect is that during pair production, which is when these antimatter particles and so on and so forth were being created, when you had the neutrino, the godfather, I believe, neutrino, that's what it's called, or colloquially used to be called. So the neutrino that led to the neutrino decay that led to matter dominating, essentially, that thing. That energy was still conserved. So the like the annihilation between the matter and the antimatter, that energy still led to like this, like, sort of, yeah, pair particle production, pair production. That's what's called. So yeah, so I think the antimatter signatures are all around us. Like, we are the antimatter signature in part as well. So, or at least that's what
So that's why I'm going to blow up this cup of coffee right now.
You're hilarious. I mean, it's funny
Oh,
because bananas are constantly radiating antimatter, right? Like,
I love this. I love having these conversations. They're so much fun. I just think about this stuff so much. I just read it. I have a hard time. I've taken some basic physics classes, dude. I swear to God, I'm talking about 101 here. And
Nice.
where I go, okay, I get it. Velocity, mass. Okay, let's throw this in there. Okay, I've got these two numbers. Let's see if I can get to a third number. Right. Oh, I get it. I do. And then I take one step further and I'm lost. It's
all good.
so, I need
That's the beauty of
physicists.
physics.
I need physicists to just explain to me what the algorithms mean, and that I can wrestle with that and kind of put these ideas together. I cannot for the life of me get past the very basics. No, I can't do it. I look at some of those whiteboards and I watch a physicist do his thing, right? Okay, so and I'm like, man, I'm out. It's just beyond me. It's just beyond me. But I understand what I can if it's explained to me.
Right
Make
on.
sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And also on the math side, practice makes perfect. That it just takes years and years of practice.
Yeah, I have zero patience. That that whiteboard behind you,
Yeah.
that's my kryptonite.
You're so funny.
Hey, Deep, man, thank you so much. We've got a lot of exciting plans here together that are going to break out the rest of this year and then going into next year. Just thank you for everything. And where can everybody follow what you're doing?
Thank you, first of all, Jimmy. It's such a pleasure. I can't wait to see you in person soon. And I think my Twitter is probably the best place. That's at Deep Neuron, DEEPNEURON. With that, it was such a pleasure talking to you, brother. Really, really awesome catching up after such a long time.
You're the absolute best, Deep, and just thank you so much. And I'll reach out to you over the weekend, and we'll have a conversation on the phone, and we'll do it that way. But just thank you, man. Perfect night on the show, and I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you so much, my friend.
Hey, likewise. Much love, man. Ciao. Good night.
Much love. Enjoy the rest of your night. Deep Prasad, everybody. That was my kind of show. That was my kind of show. So. Let's wrap this up. This is my Friday. I'm going to go and head into the weekend. I've got a lot of work to do, and I will see everybody right back here on Monday. Deep's links to his company and everything else are below on our social media and over on our website. With that, I'm going to head out to the weekend and just say, go back, Lee Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.